Krishna Prema. Joyamita Chaitanya Nach Re Amar Ma Joyamita Chaitanya Nach Re Amar Ma Nachare Marma Nachare Marma Nachare Marma Nachare Marma Ho! Goya Gita Chaitanya Nachare Marma
Krishna name Have
Suchi Devata. Anurakto Hare, Anurakto Hare, Krishna Name, Anurakto Hare, Krishna Name, Anurakto Hare, Taponanayase sapal habe jivera jivan. Taponanayase sapal habe jivera jivan. जीवन को नीचे है, जीवन तो नीचे है, कृष्ण रते बिना जीवन तो नीचे है, कृष्ण रते बिना जीवन तो नीचे है, गोरा निकाल से Vrindavane Radha Shame Habe Darsha Eshe Vrindavane Radha Shame Habe Darsha Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda rose on the high horizon of Gauda Desh, just like if the sun and the moon rose simultaneously in this world. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda, came to dissipate the darkness of ignorance within the hearts of every living being. He came in the dark age of Kali Yuga. All the lotuses bloom in the daytime. But in Kali Yuga, the white lotus of good fortune blooms at night, in the night of Kali Yuga. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda illuminate the night. Srila Prabhupada, with such focus and determination, went all over India with his books. And following the orders of the spiritual master, he got on a ship, which is there in Calcutta. You can go and see it. Not the ship, but the dock. You drive over the bridge, and you look down to the dock where Prabhupada got onto the Jaladuta. You'll find that it's on the Ganga. The Jaladuta was on the Ganga. And Prabhupada got on that boat, went out into the ocean. traveled Boston Harbor, went to New York City. He went to the park. He sat down in Thompson Square Park by himself and started chanting Hare Krishna. The first thing that happened was the police came and said, you can't do that here. Got to move off the grass, sit under the tree. Prabhupada sat under the tree and he kept chanting. Then Achyutananda came and Brahmananda came. They started, Bruce and whatever Achyutananda's name was, they started dancing. Prabhupada invited them back to hear the Bhagavad Gita. And more people came. And that's how the Krishna conscious movement started. By one kirtan, Thompson Square Park. Now there's devotees all over the world. There's not any time in any day when there's not a kirtan going on somewhere, in some time zone, because of Srila Prabhupada. And everyone is learning more and more about the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you dive into the ocean, the Sankirtan movement was chanting, dancing, and feasting. You'll come up on the shore of the pastimes of Shri Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. So Bhakti Vinod Thakur, in this last line of his song, he says, oh, how wonderful it is, the mercy of Lord Gauranga. Gaura Kripa Hole He. And now, you're really quiet, and you listen. You can hear in Milton, in Brandon, Scarborough, Winnipeg, Muskoka, Sudbury. You can hear a sound. Gaur. Give me the Gaur note. Gaur Kripa Hole. There it is. C-D-E-F. F. Gaur Kripa Hole. Gaura Kripa. You can hear it. Gaura Kripa Hole. Gaur Kripa Hole. Gaura Kripa Hole. Gaura Kripa Hole. Gaur Kripa Hole. Sai Chaitanya Rama. Sai Chaitanya Rama. Natri Arman. Natri Arman. Natri Arman. Natri Arman. Hey! Jaya Gauranga, 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 Jaya Gauranga. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. ma, nach, re, ama, ma, kapre, manande. Gita Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gita Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakachaja Stotar Shishimad Bhai Charananda Vijna Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakachaja Stotar Shishimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopopina Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sri Mayapur Navditam Ki Jai. Sri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Samveta Bhaktivinoda. All glorious assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari. Namaste Narashinghaya. Galalada Dadaine. Shilatanka Nakalaye. Ato Nishinga Parato Nishingo. Yato yato yavitato nishinha. Bahir nishingo hridaye nishingo. Nishinamadim sharanam prapadye. Savakara tambalapare astamadikashinam. Dalita hiranya kashi utani vinajam. Krishna Krishna Hare Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Nishinga Jai Jai Jagadisha Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna went everywhere and gave everyone Krishna prema. Joyamita Chaitanya Nach Re Amar Ma Joyamita Chaitanya Nach Re Amar Ma Nachare Marma Nachare Marma Nachare Marma Nachare Marma Ho! Goya Gita Chaitanya Guru Nachare Marma
Hare Krishna, everybody. Everybody in ecstasy from the Kirtan?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Amazing, Prabhu. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, we'll start with the invocation. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vande Aham Shri Guru Shri Utapatakamallam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijan Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for coming. So from today, we will start Unit 13, Chapter 25 onwards. So Canto 3 is titled The Status Quo. Unit 13 covers chapters 25 to 29. Unit 13 is titled Kapila Siksha Part 1. And then from chapters 30 to 33 is Kapila Siksha Part 2. So these last chapters 25 to 33 of Canto 3 are on Kapila Siksha, in which Lord Kapila speaks devotional Sankhya to the whole world. Lord Kapila is Krishna himself, Bhagavan, in the category of Vishnu Tattva. So these Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, chapters 25 to 33 are very heavy and very complex philosophy. Although when we read, you will realize that a lot of these points you have heard over many times, but still these are in detail, all these philosophical points. So up to Canto 3, Chapter 24, we all studied the episode of the father of Lord Kapila, which is Kardama Muni, and his wife Devahuti, meaning Kardama Muni's wife Devahuti. So Kardama Muni had ideal grahastha life. Kardama Muni followed the orders of Brahmaji very nicely. Kardama Muni first followed Brahmacharya ashram, then followed the ideal grahastha ashram. Kardama Muni also begot the ideal son, Lord Kapila. Then Kardama Muni left home, even in the presence of the Lord, to set an example of Vanaprastha life. Basically, Kardama Muni's life was an ideal life for all of us to follow. Now, each incarnation has a specific purpose. Lord Kapila appeared for teaching transcendental devotional Sankhya Yoga, to teach the process of devotional service for benefiting the entire human race. That's why he appeared. So chapter 25 is titled The Glories of Devotional Service. Is divided into 5 parts. Part 1 is verses 1 to 5. Saunaka Rishi's eagerness to hear about Lord Kapila. Part 2, verses 6 to 11. Devahuti's questions to Lord Kapila. Part 3, verses 12 to 27. Adhyatmika Yoga and its description. So this part 3 is answer to question 1 of Devahuti. Part 4 is verses 28 to 30. Devahuti's further questions. In this chapter 25, Devahuti will ask 4 questions. 2 will get answered in this chapter and 2 will get answered later on, and Devahuti will further ask more questions also. Part 5 is verses 31 to 44. Lord Kapila answers question 2. Everybody got the parts?
Yes, Prabhu.
So part 1, verses 1 to 5 are straightforward on Saunaka Rishi's inquiry. Is our dear Aditi able to read verse number 1 translation?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, text 1, translation. Sri Saunaka said, although he is unborn, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took birth as Kapila Muni by his internal potency. He descended to disseminate transcendental knowledge for the benefit of the whole human race.
Krishna. So in paragraph 1, Srila Prabhupada explains Atma Prajapnapte, which means Lord descends for benefit of humans to give transcendental knowledge and for the purpose of teaching Atma Tattva, as well as for the purpose of teaching ultimate conclusion of Vedas. The ultimate conclusion of Vedas is to do devotional service to the Lord. And in paragraph 1, Srila Prabhupada also explains the influence of the modes on humans. When Jiva is controlled by the mode of passion, they are more oriented to getting results and working hard day and night. When Jiva is under the mode of goodness, we have studied in Bhagavad Gita chapter 14 that there is some happiness. But the main point is that when Jiva is in mode of goodness, they experience Vedic knowledge. Knowledge is the result of mode of goodness. So here, Kapila, Lord Kapila, did not appear to teach Vedic knowledge in the mode of goodness. but he has appeared for teaching transcendental knowledge. So the difference between knowledge in the mode of goodness and transcendental knowledge is that goodness knowledge is to get liberation. Transcendental knowledge is to establish a relationship with the Supreme Lord, and we get interested in pure devotional service. And in paragraph number 2, Srila Prabhupada explains Aham Brahmasmi. That simply to understand one is not matter is not enough. One should not be satisfied with the philosophy that I am Jiva Brahman. And then after liberation, I will become Para Brahman. No. Rather, one has to move ahead to take up the process of pure devotional service. And for this, one must be situated in the activities of the soul. Everybody with me before we read purport, paragraph text 1?
Yes.
Kalyani, can you please read verse 1 purport faster pace?
Text 1. The word Atma Pragnapte indicates that the Lord descends for the benefit of the human race to give transcendental knowledge. Material necessities are quite sufficiently provided for in the Vedic knowledge, which offers a program for good living conditions and gradual elevation to the platform of goodness. In the mode of goodness, one's knowledge expands. On the platform of passion, there is no knowledge, for the passion is simply an impetus to enjoy material benefits. On the platform of ignorance, there is no knowledge and no enjoyment, but simply life almost like that of animals. The Vedas are meant to elevate one from the mode of ignorance to the platform of goodness. When one is situated in the mode of goodness, he is able to understand knowledge of the self or transcendental knowledge. This knowledge cannot be appreciated by any ordinary man. Therefore, since a disciplic succession is required, this knowledge is expounded either by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself or by his bona fide devotee. Saunaka Muni also states here that Kapila, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, took birth or appeared simply to appreciate and disseminate transcendental knowledge. Simply to understand that one is not matter but spirit soul is not sufficient knowledge for understanding the self and his activities. One must be situated in the activities of Brahman. Knowledge of those activities is explained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Such transcendental knowledge can be appreciated in human society but not in animal society, as clearly indicated here by the word Nranam for the human beings. Human beings are meant for regulated life. By nature, there is regulation in animal life also, but that is not like the regulated life as described in the scriptures or by the authorities. Human life is regulated life, not animal life. In regulated life, only can one understand transcendental knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Questions, comments, realizations? So in Bhagavad Gita, verse 7.1, 10.9, the hearing process is emphasized. There are many other places also. And that hearing process is also emphasized here in 3.25.2. Mother Jija, verse 2 and 3 translations are straightforward.
Text 2, translation. Saunaka continued, there is no one who knows more than the Lord himself. No one is more worshipable or more mature a yogi than he. He is therefore the master of the Vedas, and to hear about him, always is the actual pleasure of the senses. Text 3. Therefore, please precisely describe all the activities and pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is full of self-desire and who assumes all these activities by his internal potency. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Dipanshu Prabhu, verse 4 and 5 translations again are straightforward.
Krishna. Sri Suta Goswami said, the most powerful sage Maitreya was a friend of Vyasdev. Being encouraged and pleased by Vidura's inquiry about transcendental knowledge, Maitreya spoke as follows. Maitreya said, when Kardama left for the forest, Lord Kapila stayed on the strand of Bindu Sarovar to please his mother Devahuti.
So the first section, first part is pretty straightforward, that Sonaka Rishi is inquiring to hear more about Lord Kapila. Part 2 is verses 6 to 11. Title is Devahuti's Questions to Lord Kapila. Devahuti will ask 4 very important questions to Lord Kapila in this chapter, and then few more important questions down the line chapters also. Chandran Prabhu, verse 6 and 7 translations.
Hare Krishna. Text 6. When Kapila, who could show her the ultimate goal of the absolute truth, was sitting leisurely before her, Devahuti remembered the words Brahma had spoken to her, and she therefore began to question Kapila as follows. Devahuti said, I am very sick of the disturbance caused by my material senses, for because of the sense disturbance, my Lord, I have fallen into the abyss of ignorance.
Can
I
so
go
Devahuti remembered Brahmaji's words that Lord will himself appear as sun and Lord will speak devotional Sankhya. Hence, Devahuti is inquiring. So Devahuti speaks about her position first as an ordinary jiva. Problem is, because of avidya, jiva has identified himself as body and senses. I am interested in serving my senses. But this life of sense gratification is asat. Hence, Devahuti is saying, I have wasted life in enjoying material life just as most other ordinary jivas. The result of engaging senses with asat, asat means matter or temporary matter. The result of engaging senses with asat is misery and unhappiness. Hence, jiva suffers. On the other hand, jiva has real and higher engagement of devotional service. Jiver Swarupa hoy Nitya Krishna Das. So jiva has to take up that higher engagement. Everybody with me?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Mother Chandra Aunty, verse 8 and 9 translation.
Hare Krishna. Text 8. Your Lordship is my only means of getting out of this darkest region of ignorance, because you are my transcendental I, which by your mercy only I have attained after many, many births. Text 9. You are the You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin and Supreme Lord of all living entities. You have arisen to disseminate the rays of the sun in order to dissipate the darkness of the ignorance of the universe. Hare Krishna.
So the lamp analogy is given that as a lamp illuminates the whole room, hence Devahuti is saying or asking to remove the darkness of my heart. And then the sun analogy is also given that you have arisen like the sun to dissipate darkness of ignorance of the entire universe. Meaning, Devotee is saying that you are Adi Guru of the whole world. You have appeared for the benefit of all living entities. So material world is an ocean. I am on this side of the ocean and I am unhappy. In order to become happy, I have to cross the ocean on the other side. And if just as you say you are standing on the banks of river Ganga, if I want to go to the other side of Ganga, I need help of a boatman. Similarly, to cross the ocean of material existence, we need help of a spiritual master. This is important. Now the relationship changes to spiritual master and disciple. Before, the relationship was of a mother. Just as in Bhagavad Gita 2.7, the relationship changes from Krishna and Arjuna being friends to Krishna becoming the spiritual master and Arjuna becoming the disciple. So our dear Shivangi had asked this question a couple classes back, whether Lord Kapila is the spiritual master of Devahuti. So it doesn't say in words, but the actions of Devahuti clearly says that she has surrendered to Lord Kapila and takes Lord Kapila as her spiritual master so as to cross the ocean of darkness, the material existence. So Devahuti has thus surrendered to Lord Kapila and took Lord Kapila as the spiritual master and says, please take me on the other side of the ocean, hence inspire me for devotional service. So the duty of spiritual master is to inspire the disciple to devotional service. Now, we show mercy in different ways. Take, for example, in the material world example, that father may show mercy to child by giving, say, chocolate to the son or daughter or something material. When husband shows mercy to the wife, he gives the wife a sari or a dress or something. Friend may give a cigarette or something similar to a friend. But when Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes merciful, he teaches divine knowledge. Therefore, Devahuti say, teach me devotional service. Questions, comments, realizations? Okay. So Devahuti's question number 1 comes in verse 10 and 11. Question number 1 is, please dispel my illusion of aham mameti due to my false ego, and which is caused by your maya, as well as explain the relationship of Purusha and Prakriti. So aham mameti means I, me, mine. Gopal Prabhu, verse 10 and 11 translations.
Hare Krishna. Text 10, translation. Now be pleased, my Lord, to dispel my great delusion. Due to my feeling of false ego, I have been engaged by your Maya, and I have identified myself with the body and consequent bodily relations. Text 11, translation. Devahuti continued, I have taken shelter of your lotus feet because you are the only person of whom to take shelter. You are the axe which can cut the tree of material existence. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you, who are the greatest of all transcendentalists, and I inquire from you as to the relationship between man and woman and between spirit and matter. Hare Krishna.
So Devahuti is saying to Lord Kapila that it is your Maya alone that has bewildered me. Hence, I should ask only to you as to how to get out of this aham mameti. In the previous verse was the reference to darkness. And what is this darkness is explained here. The darkness is by influence of false ego, Jiva is subjected to two ignorance. First is, I think I am this body instead of thinking myself as soul, instead of thinking I am servant of Lord. Second is, whatever is related to my body is also mine. Me and mine, understanding me as body and items related to me or my body as mine. Example, India is my country. I will enjoy India. I should converse only in Indian language. All these are bodily concepts. All these are I, me, mine. Srila Prabhupada says, false ego of identifying with body as self and claiming things possessed in relationship with this body is called Maya. Just as Arjuna surrendered to Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 2.7 and asked Krishna to be spiritual master and to instruct, Devahuti is doing the same here. Devahuti says, you are the axe which can be used to cut down the entangling tree of material world. By transcendental knowledge, one can cut down the tree of material existence. Now, in this verse, we read about the relationship between spirit and matter, as the question Devahuti is asking. This is a very important point here. So, Sankhya generally means physics, meaning the analytical study of matter and elements. Sankhya basically means Vedic physics. Now, what is the difference between ordinary Sankhya and devotional Sankhya? So in devotional Sankhya, besides the analytical study of Sankhya, meaning analytical study of material energy, One more thing we study is Purusha and Prakriti. Who is the original Purusha? We have studied in Bhagavad Gita, say for example, chapter 15, verses 17 to 19. Krishna says, he is Purushottama, he is Purusha, he is the enjoyer. And who is enjoyed? Prakriti is enjoyed. So Devahuti wants to understand not just the dry Sankhya, not just understand the physics of the material elements. Rather, Devahuti wants to understand devotional Sankhya. Basic principle of devotional service is that Krishna is the enjoyer and Prakriti or material energy as well as spiritual energy is enjoyed by Supreme Personality of Godhead. The energies are meant for enjoyment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And based on this principle of the Purusha and Prakriti, Devahuti wants to understand Sankhya. Hence, what Lord Kapila has appeared to teach is devotional Sankhya, not the dry Sankhya. Everybody with me? Questions, comments, realizations? Okay. So part 3 is verses 12 to 27. Title is Adhyatmika Yoga and its description. Here, Lord Kapila answers question 1 of Devahuti. Adhyatmika Yoga means the yoga of the soul. Shalini, verse 12 and 13 translation.
Hare Krishna. Text 12. Maitreya said, after hearing of his mother's uncontaminated desire for transcendental realization, the Lord thanked her within himself for her questions, and thus, his face smiling, he explained the path of the transcendentalists who are interested in self-realization. Text 13. The personality of Godhead answered, the yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity and which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in the material world, is the highest yoga system. Hare Krishna.
The Lord smiled because the question is very good. The question is pleasing because speaker got a chance to speak about devotional service. And Lord Kapila smiled also because Devahuti surrendered to take Lord Kapila as the spiritual master. Now this verse number 13 is a seed verse on Adhyatmic Yoga. So Adhyatmic Yoga has 3 limbs. First is Bhakti, second is Jnana, and third is Ashtanga Yoga. So verse 13 is a seed verse because this discussion will continue from here onwards up to Canto 3, Chapter 32. So yoga means connecting Jiva with the Supreme. Among all paths, Bhakti Yoga is the easiest. And this is what Lord Kapila will be speaking. If we want to serve the Lord, we accept one point clearly, that I am servant of spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. In other yoga paths, this important point is not defined clearly. Therefore, Lord Kapila says, I will speak this Bhakti Yoga where the relationship is clearly described. In verse number 13 purport, the cow and the milk analogy is described. Shalini, if you can please read 13 purport.
Hare Krishna. In the material world, everyone is trying to get some material happiness. But as soon as we get some material happiness, there is also material distress. In the material world, one cannot have unadulterated happiness. Any kind of happiness one has is contaminated by distress also. For example, if we want to drink milk, then we have to bother to maintain a cow and keep her fit to supply milk. Drinking milk is very nice. It is also pleasure. But for the sake of drinking milk, one has to accept so much trouble. The yoga system, as here stated by the Lord, is meant to end all material happiness and material distress. The best yoga is taught in Bhagavad Gita by Krishna. Taught in Bhagavad Gita by Krishna is Bhakti Yoga. It is also mentioned in the Gita that one should try to be tolerant and not to be disturbed by material happiness or distress. Of course, one may say that he is not disturbed by material happiness, but he does not know that just after one enjoys so-called material happiness, material distress will follow. This is the law of material world. Lord Kapila states that the yoga system is the science of the spirit. One practices yoga in order to attain perfection on the spiritual platform. There is no question of material happiness or distress. It is transcendental. Lord Kapila will eventually explain how it is transcendental, but the preliminary introduction is given here.
Questions, comments, realizations? Okay. Sridhar Prabhu, verse 14, 15 translations.
Hare Krishna. Text 14. O most pious mother, I shall now explain unto you the ancient yoga system, which I explained formerly to the great sages. It is serviceable and practical in every way. Text 15. Translation. The stage in which the consciousness of the living entity is attracted by the three modes of material nature is called conditioned life. But when the same consciousness is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in the consciousness of liberation. Hare Krishna.
So Bhakti Yoga is practical and can be practiced by everyone. Now this verse number 15 is very important as to what does Krishna consciousness mean and what does material consciousness mean. The answer is that mind is the pivot. Mind attached to material modes, it causes bondage. And mind attached to Supreme Personality of Godhead, it causes liberation. And bhakti process is the best process to attach mind to Supreme Personality of Godhead. If I want to enjoy at material level, I am in material consciousness. But if we are conscious of Krishna, not as ordinary yogi like Ashtanga yogi, but if we are conscious of Krishna in the mood of serving Krishna, That is Krishna consciousness. So it's a very important verse, verse number 15, which distinguishes material consciousness and Krishna consciousness. It's a very short purport as well. So within the realm of material enjoyment, we have the type of consciousness to the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. We have so many different colors of material enjoyment. Questions, comments, realizations? Okay. So verse number 16 to 18, it describes the symptoms of a liberated mind. Chandran Prabhu, verse 16 translation.
Hare Krishna. 60. When one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the false identification of the body as I and bodily possession as mine. Once mind becomes purified, in that pure state, it transcends the stage of so-called material happiness and distress. 70.
So, hold on.
At that time,
Hold on. So, due to passion, one misunderstands himself as body. There are two phases. As body, and I accept everything as mine. So these kama lobha are two important points for material life under the mode of passion. By practicing bhakti yoga, these misidentifications get cleared. By devotional service, we understand that everything belongs to Krishna. Body is also for Krishna. Hence, we do not enjoy body for ourselves, but we use our body in Krishna's service. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given a real perspective to body of a devotee or a liberated person. That one who is liberated, he sees wife, home, wealth, all are meant for Krishna's enjoyment. This is the mood we all need to develop. Chandran Prabhu, verse 16 purport. Unmute, yeah.
Kama and Lobha are the symptoms of material existence. Everyone always desires to possess something. It is said here that desire and greed are the products of false identification of oneself with the body. When one becomes free from this contamination, then his mind and consciousness also become free and attain their original state. Mind, consciousness, and the living entity exist. Whenever we speak of the living entity, this includes the mind and consciousness. The difference between conditional life and liberated life occurs when we purify the mind and the consciousness. When they are purified, one becomes transcendental to material happiness and distress. In the beginning, Lord Kapila has said that perfect yoga enables one to transcend the platform of material distress and happiness. How this can be done is explained here. One has to purify his mind and consciousness. This can be done by the Bhakti Yoga system. As explained in the Narada Pancharatra, one's mind and senses should be purified. Tat paratena nirmalam. One's senses must be engaged in devotional service to the Lord. That is the process. The mind must have some engagement. One cannot make the mind waken. Of course, there are some foolish attempts to try to make the mind waken or wild, but that is not possible. The only process that will purify the mind is to engage it in Krishna. The mind must be engaged. If we engage our mind in Krishna, naturally the consciousness becomes fully purified. And there is no chance of the entrance of material desire and greed. Hare Krishna.
Questions, comments, realizations? Shalini, verse 17. Shalini, unmute, verse 17 translation.
Hare Krishna. Text 17. At that time, the soul can see himself to be transcendental to material existence and always self-effulgent, never fragmented, although very minute in size. Hare Krishna.
So when Jiva revives his Krishna consciousness, when he revives his relationship with the Supreme Lord, understanding that the Jiva's position is that of a servant, all these are understood by the Lord's mercy only. At such time, we become established in devotional service. The understanding becomes that I am a soul, and that when I am disconnected from the Lord, I lose my energy. Though Jiva is covered by Maya, but Jiva can never be separated. Jiva cannot be cut off from the Lord. In the material world, the connection of the Jiva with the Lord is via material energy. So we cannot accept Mayavadi conception that fragmented part is more powerful than the original Brahman. And Mayavadi's second understanding is also incorrect, that after death, the soul merges with the spirit. The correct Vaishnava understanding is that even in the material life, Jiva has connection with the Supreme Lord via the material energy. And when Jiva is liberated, Jiva never becomes equal to the Lord. Rather, upon liberation, Jiva regains his original position as the eternal servant of the Lord. Shalini, 17 purport.
Hare Krishna. In the state of pure consciousness or Krishna consciousness, one can see himself as a minute particle non-different from the Supreme Lord. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Jiva or the individual soul is eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Just as the sun rays are minute particles of the brilliant constitution of the sun, so a living entity is a minute particle of the Supreme Spirit. The individual soul and Supreme Lord are not separated as in material differentiation. The individual soul is a particle from the very beginning. One should not think that because the individual soul is a particle, it is fragmented from the whole spirit. Mayavad philosophy enunciates that the whole spirit exists, but a part of it, which is called the Jiva, is entrapped by illusion. This philosophy, however, is unacceptable because spirit cannot be divided like a fragment of matter. That part, the Jiva, is eternally apart. As long as the Supreme Spirit exists, his part and parcel also exists. As long as the sun exists, the molecules of the sun rays also exist. The Jiva particle is estimated in the Vedic literature to be 1/10,000th the size of the upper portion of the hair of a hair. It is therefore infinitesimal. The Supreme Spirit is infinite, but the living entity or the individual soul is infinitesimal, although it is not different in quality from the Supreme Spirit. Two words in this verse are to be particularly noted. One is nirantaram, which means non-different or of the same quality. The individual soul is also expressed here as animanam. Animanam means infinitesimal. The Supreme Spirit is all-pervading, but the very small spirit is the individual soul. Akhanditam means not exactly fragmented, but constitutionally always infinitesimal. No one can separate the molecular parts of the sunshine from the sun, but at the same time, the molecular part of the sunshine is not as expansive as the sun itself. Similarly, the living entity, by his constitutional position, is qualitatively the same as the Supreme Spirit, but he is infinitesimal. Hare Krishna.
All right. Questions, comments, realizations so far? Everybody is very silent. Okay. So verse 18 describes how does the mind reach such a liberated stage. Kalyani, verse 18 translation.
Translation. In that position of self-realization, by practice of knowledge and renunciation in devotional service, one sees everything in the right perspective. He becomes indifferent to material existence, and the material influence acts less powerfully upon him.
So as Jiva makes advancement in devotional service, the influence of Maya gradually decreases proportionate to advancement in devotional service. If Jiva is 50% doing devotional service, then the influence of Maya is reduced by 50%. If Jiva is neophyte, then the influence of Maya is more. If the Jiva is a pure devotee, then the influence of Maya is negligible or not there altogether. For pure devotee, Maya is not influencing at all. Thus, the influence of Maya is proportional. The symptoms of correct perspective are first about ourselves, second about our life, and third is about material life. So before somebody becomes a devotee, he has a wrong understanding about ourselves, about God, and about the world. Before the Jiva becomes devotee, he thinks he is the enjoyer, meaning the Jiva is the enjoyer. And after becoming a devotee, the Jiva understands that Krishna is the enjoyer and this world is a place of misery. Simultaneously, the Jiva becomes indifferent to happiness and distress. Verse number 19 and 20 onwards, the glorification of Bhakti is there. So it starts with verse 19, 20 and then continues in later parts of the chapter. Gopal Prabhu, 19 and 20 translation.
Hare Krishna. Text 19 translation. Perfection and self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that is the only auspicious path. Text 20 translation. Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest enlargement of the spirit soul. But that same, the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But that same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, opens the door of liberation. Hare Krishna.
It talks about attachment to devotees. So basically, bhakti is the only auspicious path. So we know that there are 3 levels of spiritual realization. Lowest is impersonal Brahman realization. Then next higher is Paramatma realization, and the highest is the personal Bhagwan realization based on devotional service. Now a question may be asked that based on the previous discussion that only a devotee can see real perspective based on the process of devotional service, Jiva gets a real perspective of material and spiritual world. So the question may come up, one may ask, that the knowledge of Brahman realization also has some transcendental knowledge. The yogis also has transcendental knowledge. So the answer is yes, to some extent it is correct that even for Brahman realization, there is some transcendental knowledge gained by the Gyan Yogi. But pure devotional service provides the highest transcendental knowledge. In the process of impersonal Brahma Jyoti realization, only partial amount of knowledge and detachment is avoided. So there are 2 things in this process of Brahman realization. One realizes only the Sat feature, meaning the eternal feature. And in Paramatma realization, one realizes Sat and Chit features. While in the process of pure devotional service, Bhagwan realization, one realizes Sat, Chit, Ananda, all 3 features. Therefore, Bhakti Yoga is superior. The second point is that just as Supreme Personality of Godhead is independent, similarly, the process of Bhakti Yoga is completely independent to achieve results. Bhakti does not need to depend on Jnana Marga or Yoga Marga. Yoga Marga refers to Ashtanga Yoga. So at the initial stages of Bhakti, some Jnana will be required, but after certain advancement, the Jiva does not need help from Jnana Marga or Yoga Marga for further advancement on the path of Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, Bhakti Marg is the most auspicious marg, and other margs are not completely auspicious. Dipanshu Prabhu, verse 19, paragraph number 1. Dipanshu Prabhu. Shalini, verse 19, paragraph number.
Hare Krishna. The knowledge and renunciation are never perfect unless joined by devotional service joined by devotional service is explicitly explained here. Na Yugyamanaya means without being dovetailed. When there is devotional service, then the question is where to offer that service. Devotional service is to be offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the super soul of everything, for that is the only reliable path of self-realization or Brahman realization. The word Brahma Siddhya means to understand oneself to be different from matter, to understand oneself to be Brahman. The Vedic words are Aham Brahmasmi. Brahma Siddhi means that one should know that he is not matter. He is pure soul. There are different kinds of yogis, but every yogi is supposed to engage in self-realization or Brahman realization. It is clearly stated here that unless one is fully engaged in devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot easily approach to the path of Brahma Siddhi. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So far, we have established that Bhakti Yoga is the most important method among the three margs of Jnana Marg, Yoga Marg, and Bhakti Marg. From verse number 20 onwards, Lord Kapila in this section will explain the features of Bhakti Yoga in more detail. So the first important point of Bhakti Yoga is to get attached to devotees, starts with association. So we will briefly touch base on this in verse number 20, and this will get expanded in upcoming verses. So we won't cover those verses today because they are all linked verses and slightly heavier verses also. Any questions, comments, realizations? Many of you have been silent today.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I just had one clarification or question, Prabhu. So, Devahuti is not in the mode of ignorance, and she is asking the question to Lord Kapila. It's for us, the world, Prabhu, for all of us, the jivas.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Just as Arjuna is a pure devotee, Arjuna was deliberately put into bewilderment to ask the right questions for the benefit of all. Now understand that Lord Kapila, who is Krishna himself, has appeared in the womb of Mother Devahuti. So Devahuti is already pure, otherwise how will the Lord appear there? But she is asking these questions for the benefit of everybody else. Of course, for her also, she will say, we did discuss today that first she is identifying for herself, and then she is saying, so she gave the example of a lamp and the sun. The lamp example is for Devahuti herself, that just as a lamp illuminates the whole room, therefore she says, remove the darkness from my heart. And then in the same verse, she also says that you have appeared as the sun to remove the darkness of the entire universe, means you have appeared for the benefit of all living entities. Shalini.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, homework question. Why did Devahuti say, my engagement in sense gratification was also due to you? Comes from verse number 10. So we did not read all the purports up to verse number 20. They are pretty heavy purports. I do recommend you all to read all the purports if you have not read as part of your homework. And for next class, I request you to read from verse number 21 to end of the chapter to verse 44. We should be able to cover rest of the chapter in our next class. Any questions, comments, realizations?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, the homework Prabhupada lecture you have given is almost connected to this. So far, what we have learned.
Yeah, very
That's
good.
what I realized.
Yeah, very good. Very good hearing a Prabhupada lecture with rapt attention. We have few minutes. Would you like to listen to Guru Maharaj's Kirtan again?
Yes, Prabhuji,
Prabhu.
please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if anybody wants the link to the Kirtan, let me know. I can give you the link as well. It's available.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Krishna Prema.
So I will post the link in the chat.
Joyamita Nach Re Amar Ma Joyamita Chaitanya Nach Re Amar Ma Nachari Armarma Nachari Armarma Nachari Armarma Nachari Armarma Ho! Goya Vita Chaitanya Guru Nachari Armarma Goya Vita Chaitanya Guru Nachari Armarma Nachari Armarma Nachari Armarma Nachari Armarma Nachari Armarma Mama, Nacharya Mama, Nacharya Mama, Nacharya Mama. Thakur Krishna Name Viche Hare Guje Devanan. Thakur Krishna Name Viche Hare Guje Devanan. Anuratto Hare
Hare Krishna, everybody in ecstasy.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Keep
Listen to the
listening.
whole kirtan. It
Yes.
is out of the world ecstatic kirtan. I have posted the link in the chat.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, are we okay to stop here?
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you,
Yes,
Prabhu.
Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna, everybody.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.